Hello there, I'm Nugsy, and this here is my 1997 Kawasaki Vulcan 800 Classic, or VN800B. I recently uploaded a full tutorial on fitting, wiring and operating a replacement speedometer with an included tachometer and also some natty little LED warning lights, because these need changing up as you change the speedo over. But that video is like an hour long. This one I'm going to keep short and sweet, and just assume that you're not inept and you can do a bit of wiring, crimping, things of that nature. And if you're working on a different bike, you can find your own wires. If you're working on the VN800, all the better, because I've got the full wiring diagrams for you. So it all started with my speedo breaking down, and the speedo worked fine, the cable worked fine, but the little gears in the back wheel, which I found to be irreplaceable now, being a near 30-year-old bike, they had worn to the point they were no longer contacting. So short of buying a new, well, a used rear wheel for like 150 quid, I decided to go the route of an aftermarket speedo. I think it seems, on searching YouTube at least, that by far the most popular model is this one, which is it's only like £35, 40, 45 euro dollars, I don't know. And it has loads of functionality. It's got a speedo, it's got a fuel gauge and a gear counter, big rev counter, but I chose not to go for this for several reasons. First of all, it requires a cable run down the front fork to a big chunky looking sensor which picks up a pulse from a magnet every time it goes around the wheel, like a bicycle speedo. I didn't want to fit that on my bike. Secondly, I don't have the sensors for the gear indicator or a fuel gauge. But mostly I chose not to go with this because the speedo display is fairly small, and because the VN800 has a speedo down on the tank and you have to look down to see how fast you're going, I don't want to be looking for too long to try and focus on a small digital readout in bright sunshine. You might be looking a split second too long. I want to look down at a glance and see a needle pointing to a number, just like before. Therefore, I took to searching speedos. I was specifically searching GPS speedos because there is no front wheel pickup from this and no need of a rear speedo cable. And there's loads of them available. I was searching AliExpress. There didn't seem to be much on Temu. You'd probably find a few on Amazon, but they had a few quid. I'm not going to link the actual one I bought because sellers and prices change all the time on AliExpress, and you'll see the one I'm looking at here. It's a nice looking, analog looking speedo with a little rev counter at the bottom incorporated into it, which just needs a pickup wire from the coil to operate it. So although the VN800 didn't have a rev counter, it can have. You've got a few warning lights in this. There's one for high beam, as we had before, but there's no neutral in this one. What we do have though are two warning lights for the indicators. We've got a left and a right. In the original dash on the VN, we only have a single flashing indicator warning light below the speedo. So what we're going to end up doing is taking the feed for that single flashing indicator light and putting it to the individual left and right indicators up above, so they will flash one at a time. And because there's no neutral in the speedo, we're going to utilize that old single flasher warning as a new neutral light. Now it may still be marked as neutral on yours if you've got the stock looking plate. You just have to keep it in mind that it is now neutral, put a little sticker over it or whatever, or go the route I went and actually replace those really old looking, let's face it, warning lights with some nice spanking LED ones with little symbols in them. So I've picked up an oil pressure, a neutral and a water temperature light, and they're in the correct 16mm size, so they just fill the original holes. When we remove the speedo unit, we also remove the stalk that you turn to reset the trip meter, leaving a hole in the side of this console. So I also bought a momentary push button in 12mm size to refill that hole and to act as the new trip meter reset for this unit. It originally has a button on the bottom of the unit, but it has a wire out for an external button. The only other thing I bought here was a set of automotive 2 to 6 pin assorted plugs and sockets. Now you could choose to just snip the old plugs off your old clocks and rewire into those, and that matches up to the bike's wiring loom. But I decided my clocks would have resale value if I kept them intact, so I bought some new plugs for about £8. So here's the list of everything I purchased and the prices it came to. Depending on geography and when you watch this, it may be more, it may be less. So yeah, I'm trying to do this in a way that I can maintain the original bike's loom and its plugs and just plug directly into those as much as possible, and to be able to remove this console, remove the speedo, remove the warning lights all separately. So a set of plugs and sockets like this has come in very handy. So let's jump now into how we go about doing it all. This diagram here is the existing original VN800B from 1997, but I think most VN800s would be the same with this circuitry. So these are the wires that come to these two plugs. The white one is from the speedo and the black one, or the darker one here, is from the warning lights. And we switch now to the wiring diagram I've created for the new setup, including the switch around of the neutral and the indicator lights. And we're going to quickly run through this. So they're all numbered 1 to 10. 1 to 5 represents the bottom set of wires I've highlighted in green, and 6 to 10 highlighted in pink represent the top set of wires. So in order, number 1 we have earth or ground, and I came unstuck with this trying to put grounds into the original plugs and nothing worked. So ground is one wire here and it simply does go back to ground. Earth, negative. So the negative terminal of your battery is probably the best. I chose to put it under my tank for a shorter run. I removed the top radiator cap and scraped back to bare metal, put a connector with a spur in there, and that works a treat, because the negative battery of the terminal only goes back to bare metal on your frame anyway. Number 2, this is your 12 volt feed. This has to be taken up after the ignition. This isn't a direct to the battery wire. You probably know that already. So I had to find a live 12 volt feed within the loom somewhere that is only putting out 12 volts with the ignition on. I found one nearby in the right handlebar cluster, and it was only the second one I tried with probing with a multimeter. I put the earth to the negative on the battery and just probed the holes until it flashed up 12 volts, turned the ignition off, tried again, flashed up bugger all. That's the one we need, so I tapped into that and put a spur in line coming out with a 12 volt positive after ignition feed. this line is also going to run through the fuse box, so we're sorted there. Now number 3, the blue wire, is the RPM signal. This is to run through to the ignition coil and connect to the negative terminal, which I found under the tank. It has a black and a red wire connecting to it, so obviously the black one's negative. I tap the spur into that basically, so it returns back to the coil, and then the blue wire runs out back to the speedo unit. Within these first 3 wires, black, red and blue, I have put a 3-pin plug and socket in line. So a plug on the end coming out of the speedo and a socket on the end coming from the bike. This enables the speedo to be disconnected from the bike itself. Okay, next 2, we have numbers 4 and 5 are yellow and white. These are backlight and high beam, and they go back to exactly the same places they would have before. That's in the white plug, yellow top left, white bottom right. That's the same positions as we had for backlight and high beam in the original wiring. Now onto the top set of wires. First ones, numbers 6 and 7, brown and green, bugger them. I put a little no sign over those because I'm just cutting them off and never going to use them. You can wire a buzzer unit into those wires and set this unit to emit a buzz, an alarm, if you were to go over a set speed. Fuck that. We're onto the middle yellow wire, number 8. This is your left turn signal for the signal warning lights in the speedo cluster, and then the grey one is for the right turn signal. Now looking at my wiring diagram, those 2 wires are exactly what comes into the flasher warning on the original cluster of 3 lights. The manual says it's just a spur from the grey and green left and right signals, and these 2 wires should work as your left and right positives for the indicators. I implore you to try this, but they would not work for me for some reason. So I ended up going into the headlight and putting a spur from the positive of the left and right signals into 2 cables running back from the headlight under the tank and terminating in a 2-pin plug. So coming from the speedo wires, you just put a 2-pin plug at the end of these 2, again allowing them to separate. And we're on to the last wire, which is the white one for the external button. This is just a positive to the button, and coming from the button, then coming from its negative, you'll need to feed back into the original black wire that went to earth on the bike. Now onto the light cluster, the warning lights, this little set of 3 beneath the speedo. These come through to the darker plug here and plug into the black socket under the tank. And the wiring for the outer 2 lights are exactly the same, but the indicator lights aren't going to be incorporated in here now. We're going to put the neutral lights into that. So to start with, these lights each have a positive and negative pole. So we'll take an earth as per original wiring to the bottom middle, and that will split to the oil and the water temperature lights to their negative poles. The positive for oil, white and yellow, comes through to the top middle just above the earth, and the positive for the water comes through to the left of that top left, a blue and red wire. And that's all that's going into that darker plug. The feed to the new neutral light, which used to be the indicator light, is going to come from just as the original wiring, but it comes from the other plug now. So that's fed into the white plug, So we're just going to take the brown and green wires from that out to this new neutral light, but via a plug, a little 2-pin plug to be able to separate them again, or you know, just spade connectors, that'll do it. So that's it, that's how this is wired up. Basically I built this up by putting the little pins onto the end of the correct wires coming from the Speedo unit. I used a mixture of heat shrink tubing and insulation tape to sort of pair these off to different plugs. So we have the main 2 plugs, the 6-pin. We have a plug for the indicators because I had to go off to the headlight for the indicators. You may not have to if your original indicator wiring works for you. And yeah, a plug for the positive, negative and coil. So once they're all strapped up and plugged up, it's ready to fit. Well, that's as far as the wiring is concerned anyway, but there's more I need to show you, as well, specific to the VN800 anyway. These 3 warning lights, I replaced those lights with LEDs. If you've done the same, you'll find the nuts on the back of those LEDs a little bit big to allow it to fit back into the console flush. So I had to take a Dremel and take a little bit away to enable them to sit back in nice and flush. That's a little bit on both sides. And this big central arch under the console is kind of in the way of fitting the GPS module into its connector. It's a coaxial cable, so it sort of screws on, but it's quite long and you can't really get it in from the side because it's too tall to fit under there. I've had to therefore drill a hole down through the top and bring that cable in from the top to be able to screw it in. This is the only part that's awkward to disconnect afterwards. I have then, because there's loads of wire comes with this one, I have then just sort of coiled it up and strapped it into place. And the GPS unit itself, I'll just feed out from the front of the tank and find somewhere to fit that. That's not hidden underneath metal, so you don't want it just sitting underneath the tank. So here we go, we plug in the indicators, we plug in the 3-pin for the earth, live and coil, we plug in the main 2 connectors, and this switch, by the way, the little switch on the side, I've just got plugged in with spade connectors. I actually soldered little spurs with spade connectors onto the back of that. So this console now will sit back down where it came from and is pretty much ready to test. But what I'm going to do first is just mount this GPS module, which has a little bracket with a hole, and I found a lovely spot for it just on the back of the left of the radiator. There's one little bolt there, 10mm bolt comes out, strap it on there, do it back up, and it's out of the way enough for my liking, and the wire goes almost straight back in behind the tank. So let's boot it up. Okay, ignition on, and boom. We have oil and water temps. We have neutral. Neutral is working proper. We have a backlit illumination, which was red to start with, but I have changed it. So this light's off, light's on. High beam gives a little high beam light. Left indicator, right indicator. This little screen here is absolutely tiny. Surge GPS. Now when you first plug this unit in, it takes a while, but every subsequent one, as long as you're not, as I am, inside a barn, it should connect fairly quickly. It's connected now anyway, it's 0 kilometers, so I've reset the trip meter. and that's how much I rode on it. Okay, let's start it up and just make sure the rev counter works, and I know it does, I've tested it. I haven't needed choke for a little while. It's quite cool today though. Did you see how that was behaving then? It works, but there's like almost a full second lag before it gets to where it needs to be. Somehow it just sort of is behind, which is, when you're up and running, it's fine. But for quick changes of acceleration, like it doesn't keep up. I'm not bothered by that, because I have already learned something massive from having a working speedo, and that is I have been changing up. Like if I'm accelerating, getting up to speed and going for it, I must have been changing up before 6,000. Yet on testing yesterday I did rev it out to 8,000 and it gets there, and I've never dared rev it that high, but this does really rev high. Not like my little ZZR 250 with a 14,000 RPM red line, but it sounds like it's really busy, and I just never thought this bike had it in it, but it does. So having a rev counter does open your eyes to just how you can put this through its paces. That's basically it. So if I just short press this button, you see it says set rate pulse. If I press it again, it goes to set speed alarm. We don't want that. Press it again, it goes back to the GPS. So you press it once, just a short press to set rate pulse, and then long press to go into set rate. You'll see now this is set on 001. It's after 3 seconds it has accepted 001 and gone back to this. So you would have to then get out of it by pressing that twice to go back to GPS. So in there, long press, set rate, and if you long press again, you'll see it goes up 0.1 at a time. The longer you hold it, the faster it goes. Oh my good God, it's gone up to 20. I'll let that remember it. So if I long press again to go back into set pulse rate, it's on 20. So long press again and it starts going the other way, because each time you do it, it goes up or down. So if I release now on 12 and then long press again, or 12.4, you'll see it goes 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, it goes up again. Release, press and hold, and it starts going down again. So that's how you do it. And I'm looking for 1, which is the lowest setting. Now, that works for this bike. It has this twin cylinder with a single coil. I don't understand all the technicalities behind it, to be honest with you, but it was going to be 1 or 2. I tried 2 and it was terrible. So again, you know, I did that thing, set pulse rate, hold the button until it goes up to 2. So you've got to go up 7, 8, 9, 2. There we go. Leave it at that and it'll set itself on 2. I believe if you've got 2 coils, you might do that. So anyway, hold, Hold and it'll start climbing, I think. No, it'll start lowering. 1. That's what we need for this particular bike. If you're not sure on your bike, experiment with 1, experiment with 2. I doubt you're going to need any other number, because this will do like a V12. And you need a different number for that, alright. Again, short press to go through back to GPS. So that's what happens when you just short press a button, it goes into that menu. If you long press, it'll first zero your trip meter, but it's also changed the colour of the backlight. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm back on set rate for some reason. Let's get out of that. Okay, so long press from here, and we get all the different colours. That's what it looks like when you get it out of the box. That's the red, that's nice. But I started on green because this is a dark green tank. It's the wrong green, matches the neutral, but you know. I think I'm going the classic route with the white. So I'm just going to leave it like that now, and it will accept that. And that's all you can do with that button. So it's long press to reset trip meter, and if you leave it long enough to change the colours, just keep doing so until you're back to your colour. But it doesn't take as long a press to change the trip meter as it does to change the colour. So maybe a 2-second press for trip meter and 3 seconds for colour. I'm not sure, I haven't timed it. Short press to get into the menu, and then long press to select whatever is in the menu.